So I'm just wondering if you have time for just maybe one more question before
Oh,
we go.
sure.
And
Oh,
I've got
sure.
one for you.
Okay.
So I'm just sort of sitting with everything that you've just shared, and sort of all that we've read in Ensouling Language and now Earth Grief that has been really impacting me. And I'm curious if you have a feeling for what is the work of us as writers at this time as we're living in this ending.
Well, we're in a transition period. It's
Hmm.
a very dangerous transition period. And this has happened before in other times in history, but never on such a wide scale with our species. It has happened on this wide of a scale before, but not since our species emerged. And so we're looking at two things. We're looking at the complete shift of the climate of the planet from one state to another, which is permanent, which is what people feel, even though that they don't know that's what they're feeling and they're so afraid. But the other part of it is, for the human species, the rationalist paradigm has exhausted its potential. And most people don't understand that, rationalism and science, those are it's a Protestant sect, came out of that monotheistic world. So that whole thing is failing because it didn't enable sustainable habitation of our planet, or really even of ourselves. So as that paradigm fails, another paradigm has to come to take its place. That's why this transition zone and period is so difficult, because a lot of things that people have been trained to think of as fundamental reality are not. They're virtual reality. Civilization is a virtual reality built on top of Earth, which is the foundational reality. And if the foundational reality is disturbed or destroyed, the virtual reality can't continue. And we've seen that in great civilizations for 10,000 years. So what is the function of artists in this time? Well, artists live in liminal regions. That's their job. Their job's not really to be a millionaire or to be super famous or to be interviewed in the New York Times. Their function is something else, and it's an essential function in every culture. So that's why I talk about, what do you love, what do you hate, who are your heroes? Because what you love is what you're willing to defend, what you're willing to act in support of. What you hate is what can damage that which you love and which you defend this thing from. The trick is getting to the place of being able to endure loss, which is what Earth Grief is about. So this is also a time of loss. But for me, anyway, the crucial function now for writers is to begin to speak about what's true, and not so much like go, oh, there's so much plastic in the world now that, we're all going to die, and we have to get our legislators to stop allowing them to do that. Well, that's never going to work, because the corporations are too powerful. Plastics are too integrated. They're not going to stop. But they're what's called, they're novel entities, NE, that the Earth has never encountered before. So when you get too many novel entities in an ecological system, the ecological system begins to fail. That's just flat out true. And so one of the things I did in Earth Grief was telling secrets out loud. Basically, every book I write, I tell secrets out loud, because, it's part of the benefit of Asperger. That, I just don't get why people don't say what's true. False hopes are really not the way to go. So, and you cannot usually tell, like, here's, there's a great question, I'm pretty sure that's in the book, that when you're writing something and then you kind of get stuck, All you have to do is ask yourself what secret you're afraid to say out loud right now. And man, a whole lot of energy is going to come from somewhere. Because if you're, as Barry Lopez said, if you're not afraid when you're right, you're doing it wrong. Yes, I feel joy and I love the form, and Earth Grief was pretty much me at the peak of my form. I've spent the last 30 years developing. You know, and it's a really nice blend of metaphor and other stuff. But the thing is, yes, I said a lot of secrets out loud in there, and it scares the shit out of me when I do. Because that's the nature. And the more scared you are of the secret, the more bad the secret is, let's say. And that's a real secret itself. So, you know, that's a really, because that's how I found most of the books that I wrote. What's really pissing me off? You know, what's being ignored? What's the great secret out there? One of the great secrets is that plants are actually more sophisticated medicines than pharmaceuticals. Pharmaceuticals have their place, but plants can do a lot more. What's more, they're ecologically benign. They biodegrade. Pharmaceuticals don't. That's all a big secret. Still not believed very widely. You know, despite all of the scientific studies that show it's true. You know, or writing Ensouling Language, you know, basically one of the secrets in there is MFA programs suck. Everybody knows it. They're doing it for money, not to teach artists. Be eccentric, outside the norm. Earth Grief that's another big secret. There's lots of secrets in there that I tell out loud. And there's something really enjoyable about tweaking the nose of the powerful. So, you know, it's like I said in the end of Ensouling Language, we need gunslingers of the imaginal who ride into town on mythic horses. Horses, you know, birthed from mythic wombs, you know. And we bring this stuff into the world, you know, and our scores and our hundreds and our thousands, you know, all saying some version of the same thing. Once I spent this guy, Stephen Harding, who teaches at Schumacher College in the UK, David Abram, who lives in Santa Fe, and myself, and we all got together. And the thing is, we've all been focused on Gaia, the planet itself, and its ecological health for most of our life. But each of us started from a different place. And so when we were talking, we're all talking about the same territory, but the way we got to it was different. And so our stories were fascinating to each other. So everybody starts from a different place. That's inevitable. But if you're doing the genuine journey and you're looking at these problems and you're telling secrets out loud and you're following the genuine, because you can tell the difference in your feeling states, that's going to be, you know, just imagine the size of the choir. Everybody starts doing it. John Seed, the rainforest activist, he told me that a long time ago. No. You want to preach to the choir. That's the way to do it. Because if you really are a good preacher and you preach to the choir, well, the choir is going to get really excited and they're going to sing better and louder. And then somebody else is going to hear that song and then they're going to wander in and say, ooh, I like that song. And they'll start singing too. And the choir gets louder and louder and louder and louder until it's, you know, the biggest song everybody hears. And as long as it's real, it makes a difference. So that's that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And, you know, see, kind of at the end, it's important to be able to look in the mirror and feel like you did okay. And everybody has to come to terms with themselves and their decisions sooner or later. And you only have two choices. Either you do that or you quit looking in mirrors and you avoid mirrors as much as you can.
Mm.
But so politicians don't have integrity. A lot of people and artists and stuff don't have integrity. One of the greatest things we can do is have integrity. Be honorable to ourselves. Serve something outside the self. To never become the enemy of our soul or our memories. And to speak for the voiceless.
Mm.
And I mean, what